Hi, everybody. I'm Leah.
And I'm Mike.
And we're here with English Digest, and we're looking at our issues section for the month. It's June 19th, and, well, we are going to look at Bobo doctors. It looks like it should be Bobo doctors, and in America or most North American places, it probably would be Bobo doctors, but it's actually from the Chinese character Bo for Poland, Wolan. So it's Bobo doctors. And they're causing quite a bit of stir in Taiwan in the medical area.
By stir, you mean controversy?
I do.
People are talking about it, and they have strong opinions, either for or against. I have to admit, before I read this article, I had never heard of a Bobo or a Bobo doctor. I didn't know this was a thing, but it actually relates to a lot of other countries that I know of, where, they need a lot of medical professionals, and so they accept people who graduated through medical schools and educational systems abroad, and often the difference between what the students in other countries learn and what is expected of doctors in their home country or in a second country, it can be different. I know that doctors who've studied maybe in Africa or South America, if they move to Canada, the US, and to Europe, they often face similar issues where, sometimes the local hospitals won't feel that your Brazilian medical education or your Nigerian nursing certificate is quite to the same standard as locals. Now, I think a lot of that's getting better. I think international standards are becoming more common.
Well, I think you're hitting the point there. It is about accepting more of an international standard, right? Because different industries or different fields of work require you to have some sort of, certification. Like if you want to become a real estate agent, and most places, state to state, even in the States, you have to get a certain level of certification.
Right. Yeah.
Dentists, if you train in another location, ideally your dental skills are going to be good enough to be used internationally. But a lot of times you have to prove it. Or, say if you want to be a professor in an international institution, you have to have a fundamental proof of having received a certain level of degree in the past so that internationally you are accepted.
That's right. And of course, with real estate agents or lawyers or things like that, those are important jobs, but they're not quite the critical jobs that healthcare jobs, doctors, nurses. So it's a little bit more of a sensitive issue. And it's also an issue where there's a high demand in Taiwan with its great public healthcare system. We need doctors. I think most people have seen the stories about nurses being unhappy and even leaving their jobs in Taiwan. So this is a question that's obviously going to be in the headlines, and it is something that does, as Leah mentioned, it causes a stir, it causes controversy. So that's what we're going to be learning about. I think it's a good time to I prescribe, as our language doctor, that we read the first paragraph.
Well, let's listen to the whole thing.
Listen to the whole thing. Call me in the morning.
Okay, doctor. A recent medical malpractice case involving a physician trained abroad has once again placed Bobo doctors under public scrutiny. This incident has revived concerns about the quality of healthcare in Taiwan and highlighted ongoing debates regarding the legitimacy and impact of these doctors in the medical field. The term Bobo doctors refers to Taiwanese students who fail to gain entry into domestic medical programs and instead pursue medical degrees in countries like Poland and other Eastern European nations. Not until they return to Taiwan do they attempt to qualify as practicing doctors by relying on their foreign qualifications to take the national medical licensing exam, bypassing local internships, or acquiring local licenses abroad. While this route is entirely legal, it has raised significant questions about its fairness and implications. The rise of Bobo doctors has sparked three key debates. First, foreign medical programs often differ in strictness and standards compared to Taiwan's, leading to questions about the adequacy of their education and training. Second, concerns linger over whether these doctors can meet Taiwan's high expectations for healthcare quality, further fueling skepticism. Finally, domestic medical professionals worry that this pathway undermines their years of demanding training, creating resentment within the industry. Bobo doctors' presence has brought mixed consequences. On the one hand, their contributions to rural and underserved areas address some gaps in medical resources, improving accessibility to healthcare. On the other hand, recent reforms aim to tighten requirements, such as mandating an academic review before allowing them to take licensing exams, signaling efforts to maintain healthcare quality. Furthermore, the controversy has spurred discussions on improving Taiwan's medical education system, potentially reducing reliance on foreign-trained doctors in the future. The issue of bobo doctors is a complex one, involving legal, ethical, and professional considerations. Taiwan's healthcare system must continue to evolve, addressing these challenges while safeguarding public trust and patient safety. All right, so here we are. We're going to look at our first paragraph. But before that, I'd like to say how much respect and appreciation I have for doctors and nurses and all the people who work in hospitals and keep hospitals running, because my goodness gracious, in Taiwan, you are doing a fabulous job. A recent medical malpractice case involving a physician trained abroad has once again placed bobo doctors under public scrutiny. So a recent malpractice case, a case where they said a doctor did something they shouldn't do. They practiced medicine in a way that was not good. It was mal, it was bad. And it was involving a doctor who had trained overseas, trained abroad, has once again placed these bobo doctors, which we have kind of talked about, these doctors who are doing what? Well, they're learning overseas, it seems like, under public scrutiny. By scrutiny, we mean awareness or attention. So here the public is focusing their attention on what these doctors are doing, whether it's good or bad, and they're starting to have opinions about it. They're scrutinizing it. They're looking it over very seriously, and they have a certain level of opinion about what's going on.
That's right. They're paying attention to it. They're looking it over, and they're being critical of it, too. I mean, before you hand in your exam paper, you should look over it with some scrutiny, right? Make sure you haven't made any mistakes. You wrote your name on it, all that stuff, because you don't want to have, little problems turn into big problems. So yes, public scrutiny when there's problems in society, when there's, airplane crashes or, issues like that after an earthquake, maybe some buildings fall down. We have to pay attention to this. We have to learn from mistakes of the past. So that's okay. That's a part of a functioning society. And it says this incident, so these cases where there was medical malpractice with these bobo doctors, these foreign-trained doctors, it says this incident has revived concerns about the quality of healthcare in Taiwan and highlighted ongoing debates regarding the legitimacy and impact of these doctors in the medical field. So yes, as we mentioned, when these things happen, people pay attention and questions need to be asked and answers need to be found. And this has apparently happened before. We know that because it has revived concerns. When something is revived, well, it basically almost means literally it brings them back to life. So it kind of brings them up again. Problems in society that don't get solved will reoccur occasionally or even frequently. And so this will bring back worries and concerns and questions. Politicians who answered questions about it 2 years ago will be answering many of the same questions now if the same kind of thing happens. And so these are questions about the quality of healthcare in Taiwan. And it also highlights, or it brings to attention, ongoing debates regarding the legitimacy and impact of these doctors in the medical field, these foreign-trained doctors. We have questions about the legitimacy of these people and the legitimacy of their training. If we're talking about the legitimacy of something, it's kind of conforming, making sure it fits with the law, it follows the rules. If they're learning at a medical school where you can graduate in just 1 year and all you really learn how to do is take someone's temperature, I would question the legitimacy of your training. Is it really up to standards? Should it be accepted? Should it be okay at that level? If someone presents you with sort of an ID or some kind of certificate that says they are a professional or they have this training, and you think, well, it's from the University of Oz or something, the University of Narnia, or the University of some foreign place that you've never heard of, you would say, is this real? In the same way that if a 10-year-old child said, oh, here's my driver's license, I'm here to rent a car, you would say, yeah, but your driver's license was written in crayon and you spelt your name wrong
and
or
it's
something.
From Hogwarts.
And it's from Hogwarts. So I question the legitimacy, how legal, how true, how authentic this is. And so that's the question that we have about some of these doctors and the training they received in faraway foreign countries.
So let's see what these doctors are. The term, the word "bobo doctors" refers to Taiwanese students. It's, talking about Taiwanese students who fail to gain entry, who are unable to get into domestic medical programs, the programs of Taiwan and inside of Taiwan, as opposed to international, it's domestic medical programs. And so they instead pursue or go after or try to attain their medical degrees in countries like Poland and other Eastern European nations. Not until they return to Taiwan do they attempt to qualify as practicing doctors by relying on their foreign qualifications to take the national medical licensing exam, bypassing local internships, or acquiring local licenses abroad. So they don't try to qualify to get their qualifications, to get their medical license, is what you're doing when you're qualifying here as a practicing doctor, until they come back to Taiwan. You can qualify when you have a certain level of skill to do something. So for F1 racers, they need to qualify in the race to see what position they'll be in for the race on Sundays. Or, for example, if you are a track and field runner and there are a lot of people that run the 100-meter dash, then they will have different waves. And if you are in the top 1 or 2, then you will normally qualify to go on to the next level. But if you are lower than that, you probably will not qualify. But here they're trying to use their qualifications, their things they've learned overseas, to prove that they have the ability to practice law not law, but medicine in Taiwan. And at the same time, the way they go about it means that they are bypassing the local internships. They just try to get their qualifications and they get their license and then they're ready to practice law. But in Taiwan, you need to do internships and you need to get local licenses instead. And they're bypassing this, which means they're going around it and using a different method. Sometimes you will bypass a city when you go, on the interstate and you go go over the city basically instead of going through all the streets where all the red lights are. Or if your heart is not in great shape, they might take a vein from your leg and move it up to your heart and do bypass surgery where they create another route for the blood to pump in your heart. Here you're talking about bypassing the local things that are supposed to be done by every doctor who wants to practice medicine.
There you go. If you're very famous and you're waiting to get on a plane, you won't have to stand in line. You're a VIP. Everybody. You will bypass that line. You'll go around something that's kind of blocking your way or making it hard. And of course, getting on an airplane, that won't really change much. But if you're bypassing local laws and training in order to become a doctor, that could have problems. As it says, while this route is entirely legal, no one's breaking the law here. They're just taking advantage of some kind of unusual circumstances. So it's entirely legal what these people are doing, but it has raised significant questions about its fairness and implications. Is it fair for people to get easier training in foreign countries and then come back to Taiwan and make the same amount of money as the Taiwanese people the people trained in Taiwan who did much harder training? So that's a question of fairness. And the implications are sort of like what happens afterwards. What are the consequences? What are the results of this? If it was just 1 or 2 doctors and we had very rare cases where, poorly trained doctors caused problems, it probably wouldn't be in the news. But when we have hundreds or even thousands of doctors coming from these less than high standard training programs overseas, it could cause more serious problems or more serious consequences or implications. All right, we're about halfway through, so let's keep our language health good by checking in with our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是 Patrick 老师，今天讲解的是6月19号 Unit 11 Bobo Doctors Controversy in Taiwan's Healthcare。这个单元探讨的是波波医师的相关争议， 大家有听过波波医师吗？这个名称所指的是在波兰或其他东欧国家接受医学教育的医师，但是因为呢，过去他们当中有些个人涉及了医疗疏失，引发医界乃至于一些社会大众对这种医师训练途径的质疑。我们的听众是赞成这样子的训练途径，还是反对呢？好，那我们一起看学习重点，请先看到第一段的第一个句子 A recent medical malpractice。 好，请同学看到 malpractice 这个单字，它所指的呢，就是专业人员像医生律师或甚至于会计师，他们没有提供符合专业标准的服务，那对客户或者患者造成损害或伤害这一类的，那我们就用 malpractice 这个字。好，那很常见的呢，就是医疗疏失嘛。The doctor is being sued for malpractice。那就是呢，医生因为医疗疏失被人告了。好，那当然，律师也有可能呢会有 malpractice， 那可能就是失职啊。好，那我们再来看到第二，抱歉，同样是第一个句子最后面 under public scrutiny。好，请同学把 scrutiny 画起来，所指的呢，就是严密的审查很仔细的一一的去检视。那介系词呢，我们通常会用 under， 什么东西受到检视，那我们就会说这个 is under scrutiny。 再来，请看到第二个句子 This incident has revived concerns。 好，那同学以前都学过 concerns 这个关切，它的词语搭配，我们说引发关切的话，动词大家都记得是 spark concerns， S-P-A-R-K spark concerns。 那这里用的 revive 是什么呢？那当然就是曾经有过关切，又再度引发了。好，所以这个事件呢，又再度引发大家的关切了。关切什么？当然就是对于台湾整个这种医疗、公共医疗的品质又提出了质疑。那后面呢，当然就指的大家会不断的去讨论关于谁呀？关于就是我们以上所说的这些波波医师他们的 legitimacy and impact 有2点，哪2点呢？就是他们的正当性，还有这样子培养出来的医生到底会带给病人什么样的冲击。那下面呢，就进一步的说明，老师要特别指出来的是legitimacy 这个字看似好像跟 legality 合法性很像，不过同学可以记住我们通常所指的这个 legality 是就法律层面来讲，那有一些事情它或许合法，可是呢在道德伦理上未必呢是社会所能接受的，所以这里呢作者选择用 legitimacy 正当性这个词是非常好的。那再来我们看到第二段这里的第二个句子，请同学特别注意的是 Not until they return to Taiwan do they。 那这里的 they 指的当然是所谓的 Bobo doctors 波波医师，这里用的是 not until 的倒装句。好，他们回到台湾才怎么样。
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
All right, we are back. So we're talking about Bobo doctors, foreign-trained doctors. You mentioned that the Bobo comes from Poland, from Boland?
Well, I'm guessing that's probably where they're taking it from because the character Bo is the same character as Poland, but it doesn't necessarily have to be from there.
And it might be insulting to Polish people. I mean, it's kind of like how people in Taiwan didn't like it when people say, oh, it's made in Taiwan, it's very cheap. You know, standards have changed. Yeah. Maybe Poland's education system is much better now because of this kind of thing. So I think foreign trained doctors might be a slightly safer way, but we all understand what we're talking about here. So this issue of these foreign trained doctors has sparked 3 key debates. So there's 3 big questions and debates, the kind of things that politicians and regulators might have to make big decisions on. First, foreign medical programs often differ in strictness and standards compared to Taiwan's, leading to questions about the adequacy of their education and training. Yes, absolutely. I don't think anyone is surprised when they learn that education systems in different countries are, well, different. And what students might be good at in one country, they might not be so good at in other countries. So are they as strict? Are they as tough? Are the standards as high? Do the students have to study as long and sort of show excellent standards and high standards of learning in other countries as they do in Taiwan? So this leads to natural questions about how adequate, how sort of up to certain standards and sort of acceptable their education and training is. We want all our doctors to have at least a basic level of training and not sort of feel like every time we see a new doctor, we're taking a real chance. We're kind of rolling the dice with our health because it could be a really well-trained doctor or a doctor who barely knows where your fingers are.
Okay, so that is one of the three key debates. The second one would be that concerns linger over whether these doctors can meet Taiwan's high expectations for healthcare quality, further fueling skepticism. When something lingers, it means it sticks around. A person can linger in the room after the class is over. If they're a little bit too shy to ask the teacher, a question during class, they might linger around, stick around in the room and wait until everybody's gone so they can ask their question. A lot of times we talk about a smell lingering in the air after the garbage maybe wasn't put away or taken out.
Have you been eating stinky tofu in the living room?
What's that stinky fish smell?
Yeah, right,
the smell will linger in the air. It sticks around, sometimes a little bit too long. But here the concerns are lingering. They're sticking around. They're just not really going away, kind of like that smell from the fish or the tofu. And what is the problem? Well, the concerns are that people are worried about, can those Bobo doctors keep up with Taiwan's really good and high expectations for healthcare quality? And people are worried about that. And because they're worried, they're skeptical. They have questions. They have doubts. They really are kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work out if they do this overseas degree, then just show up and practice medicine. So they have skepticism. And these concerns are fueling their skepticism. It just means pushing it along and making it grow and grow. And the skepticism is just these concerns or these feelings of, I don't know if this is the right way to go about things.
So the first question kind of concerns politicians, administrators, people who make rules and regulations. The second one is more for the patients. Is the doctor we're going to see, this new doctor, up to the standards we hope? And then finally, the third one is more about people actually in the medical professions, other doctors. It says, finally, domestic medical professionals, Taiwanese doctors trained in Taiwan, worry that this pathway, this foreign pathway, this sort of back door into the profession and occupation of being a doctor, it undermines their years of demanding training, creating resentment within the industry. No one likes to feel that they're competing with someone who kind of cheated or cut the corners to kind of get to the same place. And if it undermines something, it sort of takes confidence away. It kind of literally, when you undermine, you're digging under a structure, and so the wall could collapse, the building could collapse, that kind of idea. But basically, it sort of eats away at the confidence and also maybe the feeling of professional courtesy between the doctors. I'm a doctor and you're a doctor. But you studied in Moldavia or somewhere like that. You're not a real doctor, that kind of idea. And the doctors who went through the very difficult and demanding Taiwanese healthcare system, they might feel it's unfair that they're competing against doctors who went to another country where the training wasn't quite as good. But here, back in Taiwan, they're treated as equals. So this can create resentment in the industry. Resentment is that feeling of someone did something wrong to you in the past and you haven't quite let it go. You kind of have a grudge against that person. You sort of have this lingering anger or unhappiness with how they were treated, in your mind, unfairly compared to how you were treated, which was not quite as well. So it doesn't do any good for the doctors themselves to be kind of looking at each other and judging each other and wondering, are you as professional as you should be?
Maybe that's why we have these mixed consequences. So we have Bobo doctor's presence has brought mixed consequences, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. That's a mixture of things. On one hand, there's good things. Their contributions, what they have given to rural and underserved areas, underserved meaning that normally it's very hard for these particular areas to get a doctor to come out there or to have a doctor's presence or nurse's presence in the area, so they are not receiving the service, medical service that they should get, so they are underserved. And this takes care of some gaps, some missing spaces in medical resources, improving accessibility, improving the ability to access, the ability to get healthcare. On the other hand, recent reforms aim to tighten requirements such as mandating an academic review before allowing them to take licensing exams, signaling efforts to maintain healthcare quality. So on the other hand, they're at the same time also saying, let's get this improved. Let's make sure everybody's good enough. Let's make sure everybody's adequate enough in their medical skills. And let's do this by mandating an academic review. When you're making mandates, you're really kind of trying to set up laws or rules to enforce something. And this mandate is to work on an academic review when these bobo doctors come back to Taiwan before they're allowed to take their exams. And this is in an effort to really keep and maintain and probably also improve the healthcare quality.
That would make sense to me, just to make sure that their training has been good enough, from overseas. I think that makes sense. Furthermore, it says, in addition to all that, the controversy, this question and the debate about it, it has spurred discussions on improving Taiwan's medical education system, potentially reducing reliance on foreign-trained doctors in the future. Why are these young Taiwanese people going off to Poland and other countries to study in medicine? Why don't they do it here? So that has spurred or sort of caused discussions. When we spur something, that would literally be jamming those spiky things into a horse's side so it runs faster. But we also use it to sort of say start or begin or initiate or cause to happen or push to happen, make something go forward potentially a little bit faster than originally planned. So it's sort of, created a bit of a momentum behind these discussions in Taiwan to how to make the local Taiwanese education system better for doctors. And hopefully that would get more young Taiwanese people to go to medical school. And that would sort of take care of the problem because it would reduce their reliance, reduce everyone sort of needing extra doctors being trained in foreign countries. So if they can make the education system here better or less stressful or more affordable, that kind of thing, maybe more young people would stay and study here in the system. Next, we go on to say, as we're reaching our conclusion, the issue of bobo doctors is a complex one. It's very complicated, involving legal, ethical, and professional considerations, among others. And then we read, Taiwan's healthcare system must continue to evolve or change over time, addressing these challenges while safeguarding public trust and patient safety in the same way that making sure nurses don't quit their jobs and making sure that the healthcare system is very strong and reliable for future generations, because as most people know, we're all getting older and there are going to be fewer and fewer young people in our future.
That's true. And somebody who is a young person that we can listen to, our Chinese teacher. Let's listen one more time.
好，那波波医师到底引发社会大众什么样子的讨论，什么样的争议呢？最主要有3点哦。那在第3段就分别列出来了。第一点，质疑的是波波医学教育的严谨程度，要请同学呢特别看到的是这个 adequacy of their education and training。adequacy 通常呢就是在指品质上有没有符合标准啊，所以大众质疑的就是他们所受的医学教育训练到底呢是不是够资格，那够不够严谨。再来第3个句子所指的就是第2点，他们引发了第2个争议，就很多人会觉得说他们有办法胜任吗？好，那特别是在产生医疗疏失之后，又让人家呢更加的怀疑，所以请看到句子最后面 further fueling skepticism 当然就是这些怀疑波波医师能力的人。好，那 fuel 当然就是点燃，所以再度的呢激发更多人去怀疑他们了。那最后第3点，那台湾医生的养成大家都知道非常的辛苦，可是呢大家会觉得波波医生的医学教育养成好像没有那么辛苦， 那台湾医生干嘛那么辛苦啊？所以就会有人去质疑过去那么辛苦的价值何在？如果最后殊途同归的话，好，那请同学特别注意到的是后面 worry that this pathway， 这个 pathway 所指的当然就是他们变成医生的途径了。那这些波波医师的途径会怎么样呢？破坏我们国内医师培训的途径，这个 undermine 那当然就是造成负面的影响，破坏了他们过去这些年辛苦医学教育的价值。好，那再来第4段这里，请同学看到第一句是段落的主题句，意思是波波医生的存在其实有正反两面的后果。好，那第一个所指的就是当然他们对于乡村还有医疗资源匮乏的地区是有一点贡献的。好 underserved areas 所指的呢，当然就是没有那么多医疗院所，没有方便的医疗院所所以才会称这些地方 underserved。 好，那正面的说完了以后，接下来呢当然就是负面的了，所以另外一方面呢，大家就会觉得不够严谨，所以才会希望呢政府能够呢加强把关。好，以上就是我们针对波波医师课文呢所做的中文讲解。
Well, I hope you enjoyed our article today on Bobo doctors. It was really interesting to me. For English Digest, I'm Leah.
And I'm Mike.
Take care.
Bye-bye.